So hello and welcome to the ISTA Online Festival presentation. What I'm down to do is give you a lecture for 2 hours, which I don't feel really good about, and I don't really like to be lectured to. So I want to change this to an online lovemaking session. I want to make love to you with my voice and my heart and my soul, and transmit something that's living at the core of this organism, which is not just about ideas. So in order to do that, first of all, you also have to listen with your soul. You have to listen with the deeper parts of your being that come close when the mysteries are talked about. So I invite you, wherever you are in the world, in time and space, because the beautiful thing about this kind of technology is that I'm not just talking to you live now in Afghanistan or wherever you are. I'm also talking through time. People won't receive this maybe for days or weeks. So there's something about the soul that transmits through time and space. So I want to invite you, wherever you are listening to this, to take time to arrive, to put down the cup of tea and whatever else you're having in the background, and bring yourself into full presence. And start to circulate energy with this amazing being and organism that ISTA is, so that we can come into communion, the real communion of heart and soul. So let's just take a moment to do that. So you're also invited to listen with your whole body too. You can be alive. You don't have to be a passive recipient. So I want to transmit something. Like the essence of what ISTA is a life force transmission, which is something that is subtle as well as deep in the body, something that makes us vibrate. So for me anyway, when I'm receiving transmission, it happens in 3 ways inside me. One is some quiver in my body that, normally that I feel deep between my legs, that tells me something's here that's alive. Something's here that makes my body also feel like there's something for it. There's something nourishing for the soul of the body in whatever I'm receiving. And then the other place that I receive it is in my heart, really feeling, oh my God, there's some deep layer of my heart that's opening, that's coming like a flower out to feel and bathe in whatever the energy of love that's moving through is. And the third place I feel it is here, some vibration in my crown that says, actually spirit is moving, life force is moving in some deep place that's affecting my intuition and my soul in a way that I don't really understand, but I'm a yes to, I'm a fuck yes to. So that spirit of being together in something, being together in a subtle dimension that's beyond just our bodies. I'm really pleased actually that we have this amazing opportunity to be in online, that there's 1,000 of us around the world who are not able to be vibrating in our bodies in the same space, but that means we can vibrate in another way, that some deeper part of us can listen and vibrate. So I want the energy to be circulated here, even though we can't do breakout rooms and we can't do, interactions. We are a living organism, and part of ISTA is that transmission of life. So please also respond. Even if you just yell bullshit at the wall, it's like you're welcome. If you want to ask questions or whatever, type them in, and maybe at a certain point we'll have time to feel that. If you want to emote, if you want to move, if you want to dance, if you want to self-pleasure, it's please be an active participant in this 2 hours together. Like whatever that is, it makes a difference. And that's one of the essences of what ISTA is as a life force transmission. It says it makes a difference if you come alive. Your coming alive makes a difference to the planet, whether you can feel it or not, whether it makes a difference to your family, to your friends, to the forest, to the oceans. You being a live human being is fucking important. And it's probably the most important thing that we can do on the planet right now is to fully turn on our life force. So that's one of the aspects of what ISTA is. It's a transmission of that life force. It's something that comes alive in people as they contact it, as they resonate with it, that is deep and important remembering of something deep in their being. And the second thing that ISTA is it's a mystery school. It's a mystery school because it helps reveal deeper parts of the being. And I like to say it's also an apocalyptic mystery school. And the word apocalypse means to strip away, to reveal, to uncover. And we live in apocalyptic times. Mystery schools emerge on the planet in times of change of civilization, at times where we've outgrown the shell that we're living in, where we're constricted inside, where the soul inside is saying, I need my freedom. And that freedom is something that is also core that I want to talk about as part of ISTA. But in the meantime, I want you to get the idea of a mystery school as being places where the soul of the world road tests for humanity the next step forward in evolution. And they appear at times when things have seemed like there is no solution anymore. The way we were cannot continue. So therefore, deep transformation has to happen. And transformation doesn't happen by doing the same thing you did before in a slightly more intelligent and clever way. It doesn't happen through the exponential curve of technology becoming that much more awakened. It doesn't happen by being cleverer. It happens through the human heart, always through a sense of sacrifice and ecstasy. And what that sacrifice is the giving of the self to a greater thing than your own personal development, your own personal growth, your own personal need for satisfaction and validation and all of those things, to find something greater that lives inside a human being that is willing to offer itself on the altar of global transformation, of something that we came to be. So that's the sacrifice part of it. And the other part of it is ecstatic. It's ecstasy to be used in something greater than you can understand, greater than you can want for yourself. Something that when it moves through you, you know that you are living something you have come to live with, regardless of whether or not you can understand it. That's a mystery school. We understand the mysteries through living them. The mysteries reveal the next phase forward in human evolution. And that's just not about the personal development. It's about us. It's about us collectively. So a mystery school, yes, can be places. This place I'm speaking to you from is a temple. And another part of what ISTA is about is landing temples in the world. Landing places where the deep soul of human beings is in communion with place, is in a healthy relationship with their own love and freedom and with the soul of the world and of the earth. Those are places where new mysteries can unveil. New deeper levels of the human soul can reveal themselves. But in order to get there, we have to actually be willing to transform. And to transform doesn't mean learning something new. This is not, to me, about just freeing up your sexual energy, learning how to integrate your emotional energy, becoming more integrated as a human being. Yes, that's a part of it. But ISTA is a jump. It's a mystery school. It's a journey into transformation where what you learn is to put yourself in the fire, to put the very thing that you have come to learn and feed, to put that in the fire. And trust that outside the other end of it comes a new version of yourself. So it isn't a place to come get something. It's a place to come give yourself to the evolution of humanity and life force on earth. It's a place that knows that that means sacrifice, but also knows it means ecstasy. It means coming alive in a way that you may have never experienced before. And that is a different kind of addiction. One of the things that amazed me today, that we've just been a lockdown here in New Zealand, and so it's 4 weeks of not being able to leave your home, and we've been in this amazing bubble with 50 or 60 people, so it hasn't really been a big issue. We've just gone on as we do. But I went out to see what happened the day after lockdown. The most important thing that was happening out there, obviously, was a line of cars that went round the block 3 times for the McDonald's drive-thru. That was the thing that after a month of lockdown in the world, that was the thing that human beings were like, oh my God, how I'm going to exercise my freedom now. I'm going to go get a Big Mac and cheese, and I'm going to queue for another 3 hours just to get this, just so that I can prove that I'm a free human being. If you don't have any other sign that civilization has passed its use-by date and it doesn't know how to truly fucking live, there's your sign. There's your fucking sign. That is the most important thing we can do with our freedom when we are finally let out of lockdown. So the addiction, the quality of addiction to the things that we know is very powerful. We replace the things that we really want to come alive, to fully give ourselves in life. We replace that with things and substances and food, and we all can feel that the whole world has gone 30 or 40 years past the time when it should have transformed. So that transformation is now happening globally, whether we like it or not. So I want to say something about ISTA too, because ISTA is both a form, the form of ISTA is trainings. Come to a training, get kick-started, and get your life really flowing. Yes, there are trainings you can go to, and they're amazing. And then there's different levels of those trainings, and then there's organizers, and then there's faculty, and then there's apprentices, and many people are starting to journey into wanting to join the form of ISTA, which is a container that's constrained by structures. Okay, that's great. And particularly a lot of people are wanting to do the bypass of I want to come alive, but now this is a place where I can make a living by coming alive. But actually you can't do that. You can't make a living from coming alive and helping other people come alive until you've come alive. You have to teach, you have to transmit from the life force, from inside the life force. So there is a form that ISTA is, and that form is vibrating with life. And you are welcome to join that life and vibrate that life. But you don't have to join the outer form, because ISTA is also a soul. ISTA is a soul, a community of souls that's beyond trainings and forms. And that soul has been called into the world now. ISTA is a way of being with each other that celebrates the human life force, that celebrates that inside you there are things beating inside you that are important for the world, and that they need to come out of you, they need to be drawn forth. This is a culture, not just a set of trainings. And that culture is now needed in the world. Maybe we've got to a tipping point or something. Maybe it's part of what's going through in the world, and I want to talk about that later. But just for ISTA as a being, there is a need to turn out and transmit. There's a need to turn out and transmit. And you don't need to be a fully qualified ISTA facilitator to do that. You just need to be alive. But you just need to have life force moving through you, and you need to be shameless about that. You need to be shameless about transmitting the livingness that you are to others. That is important. It's not important whether you make a living from that. Be alive. That's important. Be a fucking alive. And that makes you part of the ISTA culture and the ISTA soul, whether or not you've even been to a training. That life force transmission is the core of why ISTA exists. We just create containers so we can deliver that message, so that we can create experiences that allow people to come and feel their own inherent aliveness. And then there's also a deeper journey of ISTA, and that's the spirit of ISTA. That's got nothing to do with culture or civilization, or it's got to do with pure being. And pure being exists at the core of everything. And pure being is not something that's created. It is. It just is. So the presence of that eternal flame that lives inside every human being and in every plant and animal and mineral and everything, that spirit is also alive in Ishtar. So as this is energy moving through us, I just want to take a moment to drop in and feel what moves in us as we meet this energy, as we meet this life force. So just take a moment to breathe and feel your body. Your heart. So finally, on Ishtar, like I'm in a place that I'm in an elder role now, in the sense that I've spent 10 years in that organism, and I've migrated out into wisdom circle now, and I'm focused more on aspects of the same work, which are temple landings around the world. But I want to say that I would love to give, just in one moment, the thing that people most look to me for in this organism because of the role that I'm in. They most look for validation and permission. Like, that's the most things that people look to me for in the shamanic world and the underworld. They look for me like, Bruce, like, do I matter? Like, do I matter in this organism? Do I matter in the world? Am I allowed to be who I am? They look for validation and permission. And I feel like that's because we have been taught in a culture, in civilization, that the soul, the essence of the human being, doesn't really matter. And that part is trying to matter now. The world needs it, and it's trying to come out and say, look, do I matter? Like, civilization doesn't think I matter. Like, my parents don't think I matter. The lecturers at university didn't think that this part of me mattered. Does it matter? And so I want to talk to that part and say, yes, you fucking matter. And not only do you matter the most right now in the world. The world is so hungry for the soul that lives inside human beings that it is desperate. It's desperate to know the soul. And it's such a fucking tragedy that the gift that we need, the drink that we need, the immortal life that we're looking for lives inside every human being, and it's still got a self-esteem problem about fucking coming out. Like, come out. You're needed. You matter. Your soul needs to break open for the world. Like, please don't look for permission from outside you. Find it. Find it. And those the 3 permission slips I'd like to give you. One is a permission slip to be free. Like, and this isn't a permission slip for your personality. It's not to say your personality can do whatever it wants because I've got permission to be free. Sometimes true freedom requires discipline. This is what the 60s taught us. Freedom is not just, I will do what the fuck I want. Freedom is, I'm going to be the inherent freedom of a human soul. It lives inside me. Freedom has not got to do with the circumstances of your life, of your job, of your relationships, of whether you're in prison or not. Freedom has got to do with whether you remember that inside you lives a fire that can never be put out and never be constrained by any circumstances you find yourself in. And that freedom gives you authority. It gives you authority to live your life, which is the second permission slip that I would love to give everyone, even though no one needs it. I wish they didn't need it. And that permission slip is live. Live, live, live. Come alive. That life also lives inside you. It's part of the core of your makeup and your being. Nobody can give you permission to live if you don't claim it for yourself. If you don't know that life, that crazy fucking life that maybe makes you unacceptable, makes you say some stupid thing at a dinner party that breaks all of the customs, and that life is needed. You need to be alive, and that life may be crazy. remember one time when life came across me, is like I was sitting at a dinner party and we were having the normal conversations that you do. I was feeling the normal social awkwardness of wanting to like drag someone into the kitchen and try to have a conversation about Herman Hesse or something instead of like whatever was going on. But my body just had enough. And so I reached to the middle of the table and I picked up this pitcher of milk and threw it at the wall. And it crashed and milk splattered over everybody. And everybody looked at me to say, have you gone totally fucking crazy? And of course, my outer self said, oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. But my inner self is like, yes! About fucking time! Like, I've been wanting to do that for years! So that was my body just saying, you know what? I'm more alive than this. I'm more alive than this. Am I going to let my emotional desire to not upset people stop me living? Like that piece stops so many human beings showing up for the life that lives inside them. Because they're afraid of being judged, they're afraid of being criticized, they're afraid of being exiled, they're afraid of not being liked. So we let the planet do what the planet's doing. We let what's happening to the environment, what's happening to children, what's happening to future generations, we let all that happen because we're afraid of offending people. That's just bullshit. Come alive. And that life force doesn't mean that you have to attack others. It's like freedom. Freedom is not necessarily freedom to you to do what you want. Being alive, you can be alive deep in the core of your being in any circumstances. But turn towards the life. Take your permission to live. If I got to the end of my life and hadn't broken through into life, I would have turned to the people around me and say, why didn't you help me? Why didn't you help me come alive? So I want not just to give the permission slip, but I want to give you the responsibility of living your own life truly from the core. And knowing that it's not going to offend everyone, the world needs it. It needs it desperately. Be an expression of life. And the third thing I want is to help people feel powerful. Like I feel like the thing that has stopped the world making the changes that it needs to make most is because people feel powerless. They feel like, what difference can I make to the plastic in the world? What difference can I make to the rainforest being destroyed? What can I difference make even in my own family? Like how many times do you know that you sat there with your soul breaking inside, listening to the same old fucking drama of people hurting each other because they're afraid and they're trying to control, and inside them something is dying? Like how many times do you live that? And allow yourself to just feel like that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So power is not influence. Power is not having money before you can do what you need to do. Power is not the capacity to be in corporations or in politics or something and make a difference. Power is sourcing yourself from the divine authority that lives inside you. Power is reaching beyond human ideas of power to the very power that lives in the earth itself, to the kundalini of the planet that's sitting there waiting like a reservoir of wild power for human beings to love enough to be able to draw this up and to truly stand on behalf of earth rather than behalf of their own egocentric interests. And there's another power that lives in the subtle worlds, that's beyond the mind, that's deeper in the kingdoms that are higher than humans, that's also waiting for humans to grow up and reach for the lightning, to reach for the power that can transform themselves in any moment of time and space. That is power. That power is not given to you by anything outside of you. That power lives inside you, curled around the life force and the freedom that you are. And the love is your willingness to reach for that power and express it. So times of great change on the planet, people who are emerging as the next phase of what we're all trying to be have power. And if those who are love, that have opened love, if they don't claim power, then that power will be left in the hands of people who don't love. So claiming the power and authority to live your life and to affect those around you and to break out of unnecessary constraints by our emotional addiction to not offending each other is also a key part of this transmission. So there's 3 permission slips. I hope you use them. And I'd also like to just drop in for a minute and breathe again and just feel where we give ourselves that permission in our own lives to be fully alive, to be free, and to exercise our power. And the next piece I want to speak about is the soul of the world. Like this lecture is entitled The Soul of the World and Wild Love. So, along with the power of really reclaiming your life force, comes with it also an exquisite sensitivity and vulnerability. So power and vulnerability are not opposites. And a lot of what we've mistaken in the world for power is the capacity to not feel and to not be sensitive in order to do the things that must be done. But this addiction to closing our sensitivity to the world and to the world soul means that it becomes okay for us to treat animals the way that we treat animals, to have thousands of children dying of starvation every day on a planet while we addictively watch the numbers tick over of the coronavirus death, to allow the rainforests to be destroyed around us, for the oceans to face deep levels of pollution, to keep extracting oil, to keep our progressive materialistic culture on its juggernaut into oblivion. Like, it doesn't require even intelligence, let alone having of a heart, to feel that everything that we have been doing as a civilization is unsustainable. So one of the deep tragedies in order to keep playing that game is that we have to keep blocking off the subtle voices. And the subtle voices are the voices of the soul. It doesn't come through as loud as a McDonald's advertisement. It comes through in the deep inner sense of your own conscience, in the deep inner sense of your own heart that's connected not just to other hearts in this culture, but to the heart of the world. And the heart of the world is not just human. So humans have to go through their process of becoming less egocentric, which is normal as a teenager, but when you have a whole civilization of teenagers, it doesn't work. You have to go through egocentric, you have to go through into ethnocentric, your tribe, and even Easter now is a tribe within the world, but to go deeper into the world at the center. And not just humanity. The heart of humanity is one, but humanity is part of a planet. And that planet's part of a cosmos. So to keep listening to the soul is to listen to the subtle voices that are deeper than our personal interest. And, the soul of the world is active now. I'm going to go into the wild love movement and why this time later. But for now, I want to talk to the part of you that already knows that the soul of the world is active. And that soul is not just human, it lives in nature. And it lives in kingdoms beyond nature. And that soul is asking us to come to it. And the thing that mainly stops us collectively, as also personally, is our fear of death and our fear of survival, our fear of not surviving. So the tragedy of the planet is that as humans got to a point of not having to worry about survival in the Western world, where they actually do have a house and they have a car and they have a good standard of living, they've climbed to the top of Maslow's pyramid, they can afford to self-actualize, but they don't. Like collectively, we have not made the journey into self-actualizing yet as a human species, which shows in the fact that people are desperately unhappy. In places like America and other places where the Western world has achieved the epitome of a good quality of life, there is desperate depression, there is obesity, there's suicide. You're now more in danger of killing yourself than having someone from outside come and kill you in a war. So the soul of the world is crying out for evolution. And yet the messages that keep coming in are just stay safe, do more of the same, do more of the same. So there's a quality in the human spirit that is prepared to go against whatever is and stand for what will be, which is not yet here. And that quality is the whisper of the world soul. And that quality is also asking not just on behalf of human beings. I mentioned before the tragedy of what we do with obesity and death by hunger and all of the hypocrisies that we can all feel in the world. But it's deeper than that. It's got to do with the way we treat the natural world. It's got to do with the way that we treat nature. The capacity that we have to avoid our own feelings means that we factory farm animals all over the world. And we treat forests as if they're just building materials. And it's not that it's about the death. Like humans are part of life and death. It's the lack of honor and it's the lack of soul. It's the lack of soul in going and cutting down a tree without even feeling the tree, without even feeling and honoring the being that tree is. It's a lack of soul in treating chickens that they're just factory farm things to go under plastic in supermarkets. It's not eating animals. It's the way we do that. And the way we do that, it shuts our heart down. It's sitting at your family dinner table and knowing that your brother or your sister is deeply depressed or hurt and going through the same conversations, the same stories, where inside you, your soul is breaking. How is it possible in families that people don't know, people living next to them in the same house, are suicidal? Like, how can they not know? And afterwards they say, oh, he didn't show any signs. Humans are souls. We feel each other. We feel the inner life of each other. And if we can't feel that, there's something wrong with us. It's not just the way life is. It's not normal. That's not fucking normal. Not to feel. It's normal to feel. And to feel beyond our own egocentric relationship with ourself and our own family and our own needs and our own countries. To feel the world. To feel the ocean as one fucking ocean. To feel the poetry of that ocean rolling on beaches, caressing them like a lover all over the world. Peak experiences, that time that we all know where you sit with a sunset and your heart breaks open and the beauty washes in and then you just go back to normal. It's like those moments where beauty hits us, where we remember that we're not just us, that we're part of something greater. That's life. That's how we should be living. That's sensitivity to the great grand adventure that we're all on. That's normal. That's normal. We're abnormal. The way we have shut ourselves off from feeling. So the soul of the world is going to be breaking through. Like humans are going to awaken en masse. Their hearts are going to break open en masse. We're going to go through en masse an initiation, a journey to remember our hearts, to remember our capacity to feel. And the only thing we have to really give up on that journey is we have to give up our selfishness. And our selfishness is an illusion anyway, that comes from our fear of not belonging, of not being looked after. So that core wound that each human has from a culture that doesn't know soul has to be gone through. And on the other side of that heartbreak, on the other side of that feeling of desperation and aloneness, is the restoration of the mystery of what it is to love. And loving is not just a transaction between human beings. And it's not something that is given in order to get something back. Love is the state of your soul when you are out of the fear and control of your body-mind. Love is as natural and inherent in the core of your being as that freedom and life force is. It doesn't need to be trained into people. What needs to be disciplined is our addictive attention to a self that doesn't really exist in separation. And we can begin to feel the soul of the world when you start to treat the whole world as a living, sacred being. I know some of the most important transmissions I got from the soul of the world didn't come through people who were in the same time and space as me. Some of them came from people I'd never met. Poets and musicians like Leonard Cohen, writers, artists, people who have been dead hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And also from the future, part of what informs my world soul, my soul about the world, is feeling the generations that are yet to come, feeling the pressure of the questions on my heart as someone who's alive now on the planet. Like, what is my response to the soul that's outside the time and space of my little cradle to grave earth walk? The soul connects us. It connects us to each other, and it connects us to the kingdoms around us. It connects us to the world. And the soul knows when we're betraying love, when we're betraying the love of the collective for the desperate survival of the individual. So that's another part of awakening. And this awakening is trying to happen as gently as possible. Just like you know probably in your own life, that first of all, the soul's whisper is sweet. It's just quiet, sweet voice that says, fall in love with this being. They're good for you. Instead of the addictive patterns that you've had before. It's like, go read this book. Like, journey to this place. You start to listen to the subtle synchronicities, the little voices of the soul. But you also know that if those voices, you don't pay attention to them, then the voices get louder. They get louder because even though you have free will, you have individual free will, your free will affects the world. So part of the journey of soul awakening is to try to get the personal self to be brave enough, to have enough life force, to have enough love, to turn and listen. And we're all in that place still in the coronavirus drama in the world where the opportunity is to slow down some of the busyness and listen. And if in that busyness and in that pause we spend our time worried about the future busyness, like how will we make a living when our business is going down, or then we miss the pause. This is the subtle voice, this is the subtle sound of the world soul saying, stop now. And not just to you, it's not just saying it to you, it's saying it to humanity as one being. The soul of the whole world, which includes the soul of humanity, is talking to humanity right now. And it's saying, stop, wait, listen. Listen. So let's do that. Let's just stop and listen to how we're being affected in this time and what that small voice is saying to us. So I don't know about you, but to me, when I do drop deeply inside me, I feel that voice is a kind voice. It's a loving voice. It's intelligent. It's not kind in the sense that it's emotionally harmonious. That voice will also encourage me to look at places in my own shadow that I really don't want to see. It will ask me to stand up for things that I'm afraid to stand up for. But it's kind. It knows that if I betray myself, then there is no foundation for my life. That if I betray the deep core of myself as a human being, then nothing I do from that moment and that time is actually going to help. So the voice is kind and loving because it knows the truth of what lives at the core of all of us. And it wants us to turn towards that. But I also know that that voice is going to get louder. Just like in the personal life, if you don't listen to the synchronicities, then the synchronicities become more urgent. And then we start to learn through crisis instead of through a turning towards the soul. And because the soul has been alienated from the world so long and our disconnection from the sacred is so great, that crisis is now upon us. Like we're 30 years past the first listenings, the first callings towards us as a species. And so now the crises are coming. And the next decade on the planet, from my listening, is going to be a decade of intensity. And what really is going on in that intensity is the soul of the world is trying to get through and break open the heart of humanity to its inherent love and freedom and power and life force. It's trying to get us to stand up for more than our Facebook profiles and our stock portfolios and our education and our superannuation, and remember that the soul connects us to not only every other human being, but to every other life force, inanimate or organic, on the planet and in the universe. And that life force can give us a power that we don't have otherwise. So the encouragement to turn to face the world soul is to do that through giving full permission to your own soul. And this soul has sensitivity and vulnerability as well as power and life force. So the two places to look is look into your heartbreak. Like truly look into your heartbreak. Like one of the tragedies of the human heart is that we've turned love into a commodity, and then we've turned it into a Valentine's Day card. We've turned love into this deeply vulnerable emotional thing. And that we have turned love into something that's inside us that we have to protect. That there's a little flame in our heart. That like Marilyn Monroe, the candle in the wind, we can't let it blow out. That we have to protect it. And we have to wait till the right person with the right key who loves us enough comes along, and then we can open and share it just with this person. This is a tragedy of what love is. Love is not a little quiet pussy that sits on your lap and makes you feel better. Love is a roaring, raging tiger. It's the life force of the universe that's seeking to break your heart open from the inside. Love is not about love for another human being. Love is about love itself. Love itself is a wild, raging force that if you allow to break through the core of your own being, it will sustain you for the rest of your incarnation. And not only will it sustain your life, it will sustain the lives of those around you. That energy of love that pours through the core of your being, that is medicine for the world. That is an elixir. That's the thing everybody is looking for. That's the Holy Grail. That opening in the core of your heart, underneath your sense of no self-worth and no one loves you and you don't matter, that love, that's the answer. And you can say that as tritely as you want, but it's a visceral, embodied, energetic reality. When love takes you, when you give permission for love to be the wild force that it is, not the little thing that you want to make you feel happy, when you truly let love take your heart and shine through your heart and flow from your heart into the world, now you're riding a tiger. And now you're starting to understand what the power of love is. And that power of love is not concerning itself with your woundings. Okay, you can go into psychotherapy for 50 years and still not get to the bottom of your self-reflective wounding. Yes, we lived and were brought up in a culture where people did not see our soul, where they did not fully honor us, where they did not give us the nourishment that our soul may have needed at a certain point in evolution. Yes, yes, yes. And now get over it. Get over that now. Get over it by not continually going to the very places that couldn't give us love and trying to prove to them that we were worthy of it and give it to us this time. Accept the heartbreak of being in a world that did not honor your soul. Accept that heartbreak. Let your heart break. Yes, you deserved fucking better. Yes, there will be generations that will have what you didn't have. But please, please get over that now. Get over the need to heal. Get over the long obsession with self. Get over the finding yourself that started in the 60s. And get into living. That love that you never received through other human beings is here anyway. It's in the breath that you breathe. It's in the light that falls on your face. It's in the gaze of another human being across the traffic lights in a queue. It's here. Love is here. So the hardest way to access love is to go through the core of your own being and to go through the heartbreak, to go through the vulnerability of feeling unloved, of feeling that you don't matter, of feeling that nobody saw you and blessed you and recognized you and saw you for the beauty and the gift that you are. Each human being arriving on the planet is a Christ or a Muhammad and we're also a devil and a Hitler and we are everything. We are the world's soul. And so in the heartbreak of that not being seen and in the reaching to the nourishment that is here and in reaching to each other and being brave enough to open our hearts to the deep truth, which is that we are love, have always been love, we came to be love. In that, we are atoned. We come to peace. Because my experience in me and in all of those people that I've met over decades of doing transformational work is that inside them, the deepest betrayal is not a betrayal that happened from their parents or society, or their deepest betrayal is they betrayed themselves. The deepest betrayal is that they knew somewhere deep inside their heart that they should have stood up for the love that they are, for the power that they are, the passion that they are, and they didn't. And no amount of blaming anyone else will ever change that reality for you. Only the heartbreak of realizing the cost of you not showing up in the world, of you not showing up in the deepest place that you could. That's the heartbreak that there is no healing from unless you go back there, break it, and change it. Go back to that feeling of powerlessness, of desperation, of not feeling like you mattered, and breathe through it and feel it and vibrate it, and then go deeper, and you will find that there's a love here that's never abandoned you, that has never stopped thrumming through the entire universe, and it wants to thrum through you. It wants to break your heart open, and the only thing blocking that is the piece of lack of self-worth, where we feel like we abandoned love. So one half of breaking yourself open to love, going through the portal. And by the way, there is no way around this portal for humanity. We can't go around the portal with clever technology. We can't go underneath it with creating a little ark for ourselves somewhere like New Zealand. The only place that we can go is through the heartbreak. Through the heartbreak that we as humanity have ignored the thing that is most deeply inside us, which is our soul, which would connect us to the world, which would make a totally different way of living and civilization based on totally different fundamental principles. We, each of us, have abandoned that core. And going through that abandonment wound is the way of redemption, is the way of breaking our hearts and remembering who we are and then deciding to live. So that's the sensitivity and the vulnerable side of the street. The other side of the street is the thrill. Like really, the lives that most of us live are so fucking boring. And we know that they are. Like, we know they are. I know in my life, I kind of thought I was clever because I got through most things with about 60% of my effort. I cruised and did a bit of magic and made things happen until I got to a point where I realized I didn't want that. I actually didn't want to get by and survive and be successful. And what I wanted was to be used up. What I wanted is for everything that I am to be on the fire, in the fire. I wanted to live on that edge. And that edge is a place of adrenaline in the body, but it's also a place of excitement in the soul. The excitement of knowing that you are for something much bigger and much greater than your own evolution. That is a thrill, and that is a power. So I want to tell you about this cafe on the edge thing that those of you who have done this to one will know about. Is that place, a transformational place in your life that you come to. Is like walking to the edge of a cliff. You've been going along the forest path and it's been going great, but all of a sudden you come to a place and you know that some serious shit is going to happen here. That if you take another step, that the ground that you knew is pulled out from beneath you. And you don't know if you're going to fall, you don't know if you're going to fly, you don't know if you're going to turn into a butterfly from a caterpillar. You just know that you can't take that step. The life force has to take it in you. Love has to take it in you. Something beyond you has to take you through that portal, through that doorway, through that initiation. Everything that you've done can get you to the edge, but it can't take you over the edge. Love must come for you and hold your hand and call you when it's your time. So what happens for most people in a civilization that is initiation interrupted? Okay, the initiation of humanity that we should have made as a civilization has been delayed. And that delay I liken to coming to the edge of the cliff, really wanting to jump, and then feeling like, hold on, that doesn't seem very rational. Maybe I need to sit down on the edge of the cliff and have a cup of tea and think about this because I don't want to be, premature. So we sit on the edge of the cliff and we have a cup of tea and we're sitting there waiting, thinking I'm going to jump after the cup of tea, and then somebody else comes along and they ask us what we're doing, and we say, look, I'm having a cup of tea, so we share it with them. And pretty soon we feel like, you know what, maybe we could just set up a cafe here because so many people are coming. Like a lot of people seem to want to come to this cliff and they're coming here and they're all a little bit afraid to jump off. So we'll have a cafe and we'll serve last chance lattes, and we'll have full moon meditations, and we'll have orgasmic practices, and we'll have, we'll source our clothes from Bali or Goa or somewhere, and we'll be part of this cool tribe that live right on the edge, because we live right there on the edge. We're very close to the transformation, and we'll start making a good living here, because it's really making a good living on the edge of the cliff of life. Because a lot of people seem to be coming here. Somehow the forces of evolution are forcing all of these people to the edge of the cliff. Maybe we'll start a franchise, because we can't be the only edge of a cliff. There must be edges of cliff all over the world. So how about we have a franchise of cafes on the edge, and then we'll standardize some of those, Then we'll be the place that people come to and go through the drive-through when they've come out of lockdown, We'll be that place. But we'll be like a spiritual version of that place. It'll be organic food, and it'll be be all the good things, and we'll be the new civilization, except that we're just building this cafe on the edge of the old civilization. And now we've even forgotten that we came to jump. Now in our minds, we think we've jumped, and we think we are the new. At least the people who haven't jumped and haven't come to live in the cafe, at least they still have hope that there will be transformation and change at a deep level. So what happens is eventually our cafe franchise is threatened. It's threatened because the health and safety regulations come along and say you can't build a cafe on the edge of the cliff because someone could wander off that cliff, So what we do is we build a fence along the cliff. A hard fence, a high fence, so that nobody can fall off the cliff. We forget that we came to jump. We forget that we came to jump. Not unintelligently, not out of fear, We came to stand and feel the fact that we are on the edge of something that we don't know, that there is a mystery ahead to guide us, and that we can't trust anymore the patterns of thinking that come from a civilization that is over. We can't trust our fear. We actually have to trust something deeper. We have to trust the mystery that's brought us there, and we have to wait for the moment that's right for us, and we have to step or jump, but we have to make that move. So the society that we live in is sitting on the edge of a cliff. Some people are further back, some people are right there, but that cliff is going to present itself over the next decade more and more to humans to help them make that journey. So this is a place that encourages you to make that jump in a conscious and clear and intelligent way, and to make that jump into the arms of a community of people who are jumpers. And we all struggle all of the time with the need for our body-mind to survive and make a living on the planet, and our soul to truly live. But if you want to listen to the one or two things that will help you see whether there's a cafe on the edge or not, is when you listen to the voices of your politicians and your business people and your leaders, and they tell you that the most important thing is for you to survive, then you know that they haven't jumped. So the most important thing for you to do is not survive. Yes, it would be good to survive. The most important thing is to love. That's the most important thing. And if you neglect to love in the name of survival, and there will be a lot of voices that will try to further deaden the sensitivity of the soul of the world by telling it, don't feel, we don't have time to feel, you can't feel because our survival is threatened. Driving through fear us deeper and deeper into the materialistic, selfish paradigm that focuses on our own survival at all costs and makes that the fundamental thing driving your life. So when you hear that, run. When you hear that survival is the most important thing, listen deeply to your own heart and remind yourself that love is the most important thing, whether you survive or not. If you're true to love, then you have a chance of the jump working. That love will show you the way forward. When you rely on your own cleverness to survive, and these are the voices, by the way, of Saturn. These are the voices that are necessary voices for you to say no to, that test you. The voices that say inside your head, outside you, maybe the voice of your father, there may be the voices of teachers or society, the voices that say, you know what, the most important thing that you need to do is you need to be self-responsible and look after yourself. And what they mean by that is you need to look after your bank balance and your health and your body. And if you look at what's happened in the world, that preoccupation with health, in spite of the fact that people are more unhealthy than ever, the preoccupation with making a living, in spite of the fact that people with money are less happy than many of the people in Africa who have nothing. They'll tell you to own property, that you can own a piece of the crust of this earth, and that you can build your wealth and inheritance on owning that piece of crust. So I'd love you to delete those things when you hear them. Thank you for testing me. But the truth is, I have my own authority. I don't need to make a living, I need to come alive. And as I come alive and deepen my life, then the contribution that makes to others will naturally result in me receiving the things that I need to receive in order for my body-mind to live. So come alive before you make a living. Don't try to own property. Don't try to have dominion over the things of the earth. Like if you are going to sign a piece of paper and take a mortgage, which I really discourage you from, then at least feel the earth more deeply than the crust. At least anchor through the earth into the core of the earth and know that the earth is here to love us and can't be owned by us. So these are very simple things that live at the core of a civilization that's on its way out. And meeting them inside our own being, meeting our fear about survival with our love, meeting our desire to own in order to feel safe with the recognition that we are free and so is everybody else, and remembering that at the core of the human being is life force, and that there is power in that life force, and there is mystery trying to help us from civilizations well beyond the civilization that's dying on the earth. The animals have enormous investment in humans. So do the forests and the oceans. The earth itself is trying to help human beings, and it's trying to come to those who are brave enough to stand up for themselves and for the soul of the world. So we're going to take another little break, and if you have questions, we're going to have a break for questions on this lecture so far, and then I'm going to talk about wild love and some of the things that we can do as part of becoming civilization. So, do we have questions from here or from...
Yeah, there's a few questions online. So Jerry was asking, as we create the peace and the love in the world, how is that affected by those who are intending the opposite, intending to create drama and chaos?
So, can you just repeat the question?
So he's asking, as we go out and create peace and love in the world, how is that being affected by those who are purposely intending the opposite? So they're intending to create the drama and chaos.
So as we go out to increase peace and love, how is that affected by those who intend the opposite?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is that we can't create peace and love unless we truly are it. And I do feel like one of the biggest problems on the planet is this cafe on the edge, where what looks like peace and love is really another form of spiritual materialism. It's really another form of business as usual dressed up as peace and love. I think peace and love does not have to do with emotional harmony. And so part of going out and being peace and love in the world is genuinely being an inquiry about what peace and love actually means. And not to trust that we think that we know the answer to that. When we are in touch with peace and love, people who are trying to intend anything different become way less significant, because they're not operating, if they're not operating from true authority, then they're operating underneath that from fear or control or greed. Those things seem like they have a lot of influence in the civilization, and the effects of them are huge, but they're not true power. And other people's intention, if they go deep enough into that intention, they will find true authority and true peace, which is inseparable from love and freedom. So one of the big tragedies that I see in this global movement of change is people thinking that if they can change the people in power, then they will change the world. But that just gives more energy to those who believe they're in power. Find true power. Find the power that lives inside you and listen to that. Forget trying to influence others and change them in order to change the world. Change yourself. Go deep inside. Live it. And then you don't have to fight. So one last thing on that question. I feel like in the decade ahead, there'll be two very clear paths that get set up in the world. One path is like status quo, survival at all costs, in the crises that the world throws at us. The second path will be rebellion. And this is like the immature expression of freedom, like the rebellion against authority and control. But I'm suggesting that there's a third way, that is neither the rebellion against the forces that we feel are repressing us, nor is it the urge to control our world, but to find love. And this is the way of wild love, and I'll get into that soon. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Yeah.
Question from the story of the cafe on the edge is, I know that voice that says like, oh, what have you come here for? Would you like a cup of tea instead? And my question is, how do we support one another in taking that step?
Yeah. It's a good question. And I feel like it's not about not having the cup of tea, okay? Because I think actually it does pay to pause on the edge. And sometimes I've given that, talk to people who foolishly jump, So there is a way that jumping needs to be a very considered move that you make with your whole being. not just because you heard Bruce give a talk and you come to an edge and then you just decide to leap. So, and the same in the experience of sexual liberation and emotional liberation, sometimes we can force ourselves and push ourselves beyond what we're actually ready for. Okay, so the cup of tea on the edge is to really feel like, is this true for me right now? Is it true for me to make a jump? So I do think it's good to sit on the edge with beloveds, with other people who have either jumped or are intending to jump. But just don't, while you have the cup of tea, forget why you're there. Like, help each other have the deeper conversation of how are you going to jump? What resources do you need still before you're ready to jump? What companions do you want to jump with? Well, who is the culture you want to live in? Rather than the cup of tea turns into not jumping. So there's a deep fear of change. And I think what real beloveds are for me are that people who help me face the pieces inside me that I dress up as love when they're really based in fear or control, and I'm not vulnerable enough to actually share them. So how we help each other is by breaking our vulnerability open with each other and also bringing our ruthless challenge. It's like masculine and feminine. Like, yes, I know it's incredibly difficult and painful, and there's nothing else to do. We came for this, so let's not forget that. So that's the kind of culture we create. Yeah.
Related to what you said about landing temples, what advice, practical advice, might you offer to people who might want to be involved in this to make sure that they truly are landed temples and not just another cafe on the edge?
Yeah. Okay, so the question was, when we're landing temples, how do we make sure that they're actually temples, not just a cafe on the edge? And I feel like the principal answer to that would be really talk to the soul of the land. Okay, because so many people have a good idea to land a temple. They go to a real estate agent, buy a piece of land it's in their budget and get other people involved, and they're vision driven. But they haven't really talked to the land. They haven't really understood that the land is a living, vital being, and that if you're going to come and try to land a temple on it, the land itself has a say in that. It may not actually be for that. I know in landing this temple, I spent a year walking New Zealand, going from place to place, walking in the area of the land, going to the mountains, going to the lakes, talking to the land, saying, where is the land wanting this? So that's a very different idea than deciding that you're going to buy a piece of land. That's listening to the earth itself and understanding that if you're going to land a temple, you're going to need the energies that are stored deep in the earth. Just like if you're going to awaken your kundalini and a physical being to have energy to land your life purpose, you're going to need the energy from the earth itself. So you need to start in a deep relationship with that earth. You need to be in ceremony and ritual with the earth. And you need to be listen and be guided and then cooperate with the earth as well as what it is that's landing from spirit. Good question. Thank you. Okay, so let's just drop into silence for a minute before I start into the wild love part. And just, there's a lot of, information and transmission and so on that's poured through. And I want to take time to vibrate it in your body. You can get up and dance, or you can just breathe it through, or we're shamanic beings. Okay, wild love. I want to talk about this movement of the world soul that we're calling wild love, but it's just basically the soul of the world emerging through human hearts, and not just through human hearts. So I want to say something first of all about the timing. Remember I said before that time and space aren't really an obstacle to the human soul, which is why people that you love that have died are still part of your soul field. And part of the tragedy of the fear of death in the world is that it blocks humanity from truly having a relationship with the subtle worlds, where all of those energies that may not have form are still part of our lives, and that we're making our decisions in connection with that. I live in New Zealand here. I'm transmitting from from this place, and one of the beautiful things about this land is that it has a treaty between the colonial white people and the Maori people, and even though there's a lot of problems with that, at least there's a genuine attempt for multiculturalism, for biculturalism, that recognizes that the land and the people of the land need to be integrated deeply with those that have come to live on the land. And so when you walk onto a marae, it's not just a question of who you are, founder of this and, done this and done that. It's who's walking with you. Like, what are the voices, what are the energies that are transmitting with you? Like, are the souls of the whales with you? Are your ancestors with you? Or are you standing alone in your ego? Like, this recognition that there is a whole dimensions of life that is not embodied, but that wants to come stand with the embodied ones and support them. So just imagine if you were dead and you had your option of being anywhere in the subtle worlds. Now, apart from connections you might have made where you want to go and help someone that you're probably not going to be hovering on the ceiling of someone sitting and watching CNN eating McDonald's. You're probably going to be bored doing that after a certain amount of time. If you're the soul of the world that's not embodied, you're going to want to go where there are interesting shit happening, right? You're going to want to travel to those places where exciting adventures are going on. Like Confucius said, may you live in interesting times. Just because you don't have a body doesn't mean that you're not going to be still interested in the great adventure, maybe even more so. So recognizing that subtle worlds are an important part of the life that we're living, bringing those subtle worlds into expression. So just take a moment to invite them now. Step outside your own time moment and call in. We've just passed Halloween in the southern hemisphere and in the north as well. So call in those veils. Open the veils to all of those beings that are not with you right here in time and space, but are still with you in the dimensions of your heart and soul. Okay, so of course this can keep going out. It's one thing to start remembering the dead, remembering those beings that actually don't have bodies now, but that have been through human evolution and have great wisdom to offer us. You can call them the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the enlightened ones, whatever it is, those beings that actually have flowered through human experience and can help us. But we can keep going out because we are cosmic. Earth is a cosmic being. And if we're at planet-sized change, so coronavirus taught us that one moment in time can be global. Globalization doesn't just apply to corporations. It applies to the fact that things are now Earth-size. Earth as a being is active. And Earth sits in its own family in cosmos. And cosmos also is not some dead thing out there. Cosmos is a living, vibrating, shamanic being. So the currents that affect us from the sun, solar flares and so on affect us. Cosmic rays from the supernovas and from the galactic center pass through all of matter on the Earth. We are part of a cosmic experience. And when we get past our preoccupation with survival on Earth, and we start to listen to Earth itself within cosmos, whole realms are going to open for us more powerfully. It's almost like where Earth is at the moment is we're like someone who's been diagnosed with cancer, or somebody who, like, they know that their eating habits or whatever else have contributed to it, they haven't been able to stop, and then all of a sudden you've got cancer. So in that process you go through heartbreak and internal questioning, and is this just a medical issue, or is there something going on inside me, and all of that goes on for somebody when they feel threatened by their life being taken away. So Earth itself is going through that with climate change and the coronavirus and all of these things that we know are unsustainable and are going to cause deep breakdowns in the long term. We're being confronted with that, and we're doing soul searching. But let's say somebody who is diagnosed with a terminal illness, and they do their soul searching and they get remission. Now they get a new lease on life, a second wind. So once we get through this as humanity, and I believe we're going to get through it, then we're going to be able to start playing a much bigger game. We're through that. Are we going to survive? And are we going to take care of the environment? And how do we handle money so it's more equitable in the world? And how do we have a culture of love and freedom? Okay, that's great, but that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning of like having a normal, healthy human life. Now we start to feel who we are cosmically. And one of the things that's coming next month on the solstice is a cosmic alignment. And what a cosmic alignment is a connection of relationships between different levels of a cosmic hierarchy. So moons go around planets, planets go around stars, stars go around the center of galaxies, galaxies fly apart from each other and gather in clusters. The universe has no center. This is a hierarchy of relationships in the cosmic world. And you can see them also as like chakras in a greater being. So the alignment that's coming up on solstice is an alignment between the Earth as a planet, the moon of the Earth, the sun, and the center of the galaxy. So this lineup of like 4 chakras is a very rare event. It's never happened before on a solstice, on an eclipse, and at a time when the solar system is still aligned with the galactic center, which happens once every 26,000 years and is what's part of the Mayan calendar. So you don't have to be into the astronomy and the metaphysics of it to understand that there is a powerful alignment coming. And my inner research tells me that when this alignment occurs, which is very rare, there is an opportunity for mass initiation. So for humanity itself, it's like an epicenter point for mass awakening. So that's still some time off, but the alignments are beginning to show what needs to emerge at that time is the people who have already made their journey through the portal into a civilization of love and freedom, the people who have already jumped over the edge, have to become visible in the world. Okay, and they have to become visible as a third way, which is not rebellion, revolution, overturn the old culture, look for the dark Illuminati, conspiracy theories, all of the stuff that's welling up, Extinction Rebellion, in its good and bad. It's an important thing to do to rebel against repression and authority. But when you make it black and white, revolution versus repression, then you're back into the same old human story that has ended civilizations repeatedly in our history, but hasn't really replaced them with something better. It often just replaces them with chaos and anarchy. So those forces are coming. What's needed in the third wave is a force of what we're calling wild love, which is beings who are not caught up in the polarity. They're not caught up in the life and death struggle. They're not caught up in the politics of who and what should rule and guide us. They're caught up in the irrepressible experience of ecstatic connection to the cosmic current of wild love that's moving through them. So when that really vibrates through the human being, then a lot of the politics disappears, because the answer that everybody's seeking is already alive in the human being. The wildness of their love is unstoppable. So the wild part of wild love is there's two places to find your wildness. One is in your animal, and it's in the earth itself. So the repression of our animal nature, the way we treat animals, our relationship with the animal means we're cut off from the wild. In fact, most of the old civilization is afraid of it. We're still trying to have this war against bugs that the coronavirus represents, and we want sterile environments, and we want little white rooms with concrete boxes with fluorescent lights and computer screens, because that will protect us from the mean old nasty nature out there which could kill us. Okay, so restore your relationship with nature. You come from the jungle. You are part of this earth. Your bodies have lived and grown in and of this earth. You are not separate. Your technology and your consciousness does not make you separate from earth. Wildness still waits. Thank God there are still wild animals in the Amazon and wild plants. Thank God there are Siberian tigers. There are places where civilization has not got to. Those wild places we need, because they are untamed and uncivilized, and they exist inside us as well as outside us. So in order to love in this way, you have to find your wild roots in your body and in the world. One of the places that those wild forces live in a human being is in our sexuality. The erotic energy refuses to be controlled by a civilization that is anything less than love and freedom. So as much as we may try to repress those forces, they're like the wild animals waiting in the forest. They're irrepressible, and they will come out again. And the trick is how to awaken them and open them in such a way that truly empowers the love that you are. So one of the great things that Esther invites you into is a shameless expression and experience of the anchor of where your wildness is, that has been layered over with repression and fear and guilt. So the trick is bring out that wildness. Find it, make friends with it, invite it to the party. The wildness of earth is necessary for civilizational change. So that's one place of wildness, but it needs to be balanced with the wildness of your spirit. Yes, there is a wild spirit in embodiment and in the earth, and it plays out in our sexuality. But there is also a wild spirit at the core of your consciousness. At the core of your soul is the spirit of being. And it's fearless because it's deathless. It's beyond identity. It's beyond having a self. It is the infinite and the eternal that sits at the core of all finite experiences and all temporal experiences. It's pure being. It is unafraid because it has nothing that can die in it. It's beyond life and death. That also is wild. It's a wild part of you. And these two wildnesses need to come together. They're like a great defibrillator that can kickstart the heart of humanity. The wildness of the earth that's in your body, that's waiting, that's stored in your base center, that's in your sexual energy, that wants to rise up and throw off all of the cultural conditioning of your mind, and the wildness of pure spirit. So one of the expressions of that pure spirit of wildness is the energy of the black hole at the center of the galaxy. Okay, so for thousands of years we've had this energy of the sun being the center, and when we realized that, it made radical change on our planet. What the black hole represents is power that bends time and space. So have you ever had that peak experience where inside that experience you could see through your whole life, maybe many lives, future lives, space didn't matter, time didn't matter? That energy that sits at the core of every human being. It's their dark power. the power of their own black hole, their own singularity, which is a doorway outside the time and space of cosmos into pure being. So that power is part of the new civilization, to be able to have the mystery in the center, not your consciousness, not your desires, not your personal will, but the mystery, the deep energy of the void. So the representation of that is the black hole, and the lining up on the solstice of the black hole with the solar system, with the moon, and with the earth gives the opportunity for consciously invoking in that dark light. And if that anchors, a small dose of that anchors in the core of your life, then what you live around is the mystery. You don't live around a principle or a value or a desire or a intention or a mission statement or a business plan. Those do not live at the core of your life. What lives at the core of your life is the mystery, the emptiness, the pure being of the void. And around that is your consciousness and your loving and your freedom and all of those things, but the core is being. So if you can connect the wildness of being, of not existing, of feeling comfortable with it, the core of you is nothing but the mystery that you will never understand, that you will never be able to write down, but that is so deeply and powerfully that your life is revolving around it and always has been. And you can link that with the raw, primal being of an animal on earth at a time of transformation. You can bring these energies together, awaken the heart, and what I call wild love. Wild love is not precious. It's not sentimental. It's not needing something back. Wild love exists for itself. Wild love is like suns firing themselves on nuclear fuel. It's like galaxies flying through space. Wild love is not in natural, ordered, structural components. So how does that wild love express through humans? Well, the invitation is that there are already thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people on the planet who truly have made their journey over the edge. And you will know that if you are. So this is your time. This is your time to emerge on the planet and be visible. Okay, it's very hard for people to have courage to take the jump unless they see people who have jumped come back. Otherwise, it's like, people have died, and yes, you may believe that there's reincarnation and blah, 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 but you don't know. You don't know because there is nothing showing beyond the jump. So there are many people in this life who have made the jump, who have demonstrated for themselves that the true values that they want to live by coming from the inside of themselves. You may have decided to jump by being a poet when your father and everybody else said that you needed to be a stockbroker. And you may have lived for a decade with your poetry and decided that that was the thing, that was your doorway and your pathway, and you gave your full heart to that, and you did it, and you lived it, and you've been living it, and that you've built a life on it. You may be an organic farmer or a synergy person or someone who has just said, fuck it, I'm going to go and plant vegetables and trees, and I'm going to listen to the earth, and I'm going to let go of a world that tells me that I need to be a certain way, and I'm going to live from that place. There are thousands now, millions of you who have done that, who have jumped, who have found something real and true in the core of your life and the way to live your life. It's not visible because they're underneath, but it's time for you to be visible. And that visibility is not about fame, it's not about getting attention, it's not about a marketing program, it's not about a clever way of getting people to follow you. If you have found your own life, you don't want fucking people to follow you. You want to be left alone to live in the beauty and the depth of what it is to be a human being. You don't want to come out of that place to meet all of the projections and the judgments and so on. But it's an act of wild love now, because it's not just about us. It's about the planet. And there are millions of human beings now looking for leadership and looking for soul. They're looking for signs that when they come to their edge, that it's safe to jump, that there are jumpers, that there are people who have proven in their own lives that love and freedom and beauty can be lived. So the invitation of Wild Love as a movement is for those people suddenly en masse to become more visible. And we have 3 months from the June solstice to September equinox, where that energy, that planetary energy, that pivotal point in time is possible for the emergence of that wild love as civilization goes through its change. So the invitation is for people, wherever you are in the world, like, forget about making a living for that time. Forget about getting back to business as usual. Like, really understand that this pause on the planet is just the beginning of something. It's not about fighting the coronavirus and getting all of the infections down around the world and then kicking into gear again. It's part of an apocalyptic sign of the end of times. But it's not the end of the times like the Christians or someone believe, where God will descend from heaven. It's the end of a civilization, a way of being on the planet that's controlled by fear. It's the end of that time. It's apocalyptic in that sense. And what's revealing itself behind the apocalypse, which is a revealing, is, oh my God, you've got this far. Enough human beings have got through civilization enough far to discover something amazing, to be revealed to you who you really are and what you're for. And how you will find that is through the life force and through the love at the core of your being. So jump. Yes, jump. So the invitation is, when wild love strikes, is to follow that current in the core of your being. It's not a centralized movement in the sense that no one's going to tell you, okay, we're all going to do this at the same time, blah, blah, blah. You've got to tune in here. And this is one of the reasons I love this development of Vista into an online process, because in order for you to truly feel part of this culture, you don't have the opportunity of sitting and chakra breathing with somebody or vibrating your body or running erotic current. You have to feel them across the world. You have to feel me through this transmission. But deeper than this is this internet where we feel each other anyway, where what's moving through me is also moving through you, where the soul of the world is coming to life in all of our hearts, and it will organize us in a way that we can never organize each other. To be organized by the soul of the world is to allow that voice at the core of your being to show you where you need to be, who you need to be with, and what you need to be doing at this time of emergence. That authority that each person finds at the core of their own being can be shared. We can share, oh my God, my choice is I'm going to be on the road. My choice is going to be I'm going to be in a cave somewhere in deep meditation. We can share what our choice is, what our calling is, but we will see what happens as a result of the mystery, not as a result of our minds trying to organize something. So one of the things I love about it, it's a bit like the 60s happening again at a higher turn of the spiral, is nobody, a bunch of people didn't get together and say, let's do the 60s. We'll have some amazing rock and roll music, and then we'll have drugs, and then we'll resist the draft together, and then we'll all wear Beatle things, and then it'll be amazing, right? It didn't happen that way. It happened because a wave started to move through human beings that was triggered by this and this and this and this and this, and they started to respond together because inside them they were feeling something that was being articulated in the world that was inside them. They were listening to the music because the music was a voice that was unexpressed yet in their own soul. So this is the way this movement will happen. It won't happen by tuning in. Yep, you can go to the Facebook page, you can go to the website, you can get a sense of what some people think it might be, but it's actually happening here. It's not a thing. It's not a thing at the outside that a bunch of clever marketing people have got together and some advertising agencies and created a good video. It's something that's already going on the internet. That's just an encouragement to tune into what you already know is going on. This is Captain Crazy song that we're going to do later. It's like, you don't need me to tell you because you know it's true. If you listen, if you go in It's a story that's playing for all of us right now. And it's a grand, grand story. And I would really hate for us to miss it. Really hate for us to miss the story that's trying to sing through us because we're too busy trying to survive. We're too busy in our relationships. We're too busy trying to heal the traumas from a life lived on a planet where the soul isn't celebrated. Forget all of that. Tune in, listen. There are forces beyond our imagination that are trying to help us. And if we let them sweep through us, then truly a movement will break into the world that shows the world there is a path ahead. There's a path on the other side of the portal, a path of beauty, a path of love and freedom, a path that makes being a human being worthwhile. So I love the fact that I am on that journey with you, and I love the fact that it's a mystery that I don't know how it's going to work out. And I love the fact that we have come to this edge together as a human species now. We've come and we're having our cup of tea on the edge of a great divide that will reveal to us something that we don't know. And that excites me. And it also makes me feel I need to reach out. I need to reach out to other human beings who are having that experience and tell the truth that we have fear on the edge of this mystery. And we have excitement. And we have determination to be the wild love that we are in the world. So, that's the end of that download. And maybe if there's any more questions or questions coming online or comments, then we'll have time for that.
There was one person desiring more clarity on how that looks on a personal level to access wild love. When you were talking about the sexuality in the heart and consciousness, how actually on a personal level can we apply that?
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the question of being able to find your reference point. Like for me, if I'm really trying to listen to what to do in my life, I listen through my body. I consult my body, what actually makes my body vibrate and come alive, what vibrates my heart, what truly opens the core of my being, and what stimulates my consciousness that comes from beyond my normal knowing. So those are three ways I orient my equipment to listen. And then the outer expression of that is this image of supernova. Like, how do you supernova yourself? You get a choice as a star. We're all a star. You get a choice whether you want to burn long and slow, like 20 million years, 20 billion years, or you can burn bright. So for me, what supernovas me is the thing that scares me. It's a thing that I know that if I do that, if I move towards that, then life force will move in me so that my fear and my excitement are evenly balanced. And then I take the risk and I jump and on my inner resources, and then I watch what happens as a result. So the mind wants, to make like a personal plan. Like, does that mean I should write music? Or does that mean I should, go out and talk to my family? Or does that mean that I should put on an event for the world? Maybe. This is the beautiful thing about the mystery. I feel like we often decide what we should do from very shallow places. And the great thing about this coronavirus at the moment is it's giving you an opportunity to get inspired from talks like this and gatherings like this, but none of that inspiration replaces time alone with your own soul. Listening deeply to what only you can do and doing that. Okay, thank you everybody, and thank you to this group of people standing in front of me, receiving my spit and my enthusiasm. And thank you to those who are not watching this yet, but that will be in the future. Black holes bend time and space. I hope you still know that this is for you directly and not just a lecture. Bye.